Good afternoon, Masel Khiri. Welcome along to this special webinar. My name is Lorraine, it's me, Lorraine, and today we are going to be looking at how to create an enjoyable home learning environment. Before I start, I just want to say how grateful we are to the Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority for making this Parenting in a Pandemic and Beyond initiative a reality. So thank you very much for them. In terms of how the excuse me, the webinar is going to run, we are going to have a mix of interactive activities over the course of the hour, which will include an interactive whiteboard for you to participate in. There will also be a poll for you to vote on, and there'll even be a small quiz at the end, but don't worry, it's nothing to worry about. So I hope it's going to make the next hour really enjoyable for you. Now, I know that if you have young children in the house and you're trying to concentrate on this webinar, it may not be the easiest time for you. So don't worry if you sort of miss bits here and there. I'll keep going, but the webinar is going to be recorded as well. So it means you can go back and look at it again if there are things that you miss. So please don't worry about that at all. So what I'm going to do is start off by first of all saying thank you very much to those of you who were able to complete the, there we go, who were able to complete the question before we started the session. And the question we had today was, at the moment, how successful do you feel your home learning environment is for your child in terms of learning and enjoyment? We had quite a mixed response, sort of nearly 60% of you feel you're sort of fairly successful, but there's probably sort of things you'd like to learn and things you'd like to try and put in place to make it a little bit more successful. And we've got some of you who feel it's very successful, and that's fantastic. So hopefully what I'll be covering today will be both endorsing what you're doing, and I'm sure hopefully you'll be picking up some sort of tips and tricks as we go along. And then there's a few of you sort of feel, I don't really feel it's that successful, and that's absolutely fine too. And I hope there's going to be lots and lots of takeaways for you to be able to put into practice as soon as the webinar's finished. So thank you very much for completing that question. In terms of the aims of the session, this is basically what we're looking for. Whatever size of family you have, you might have one child, you might have 5 children, all of obviously different ages. This session is all about helping you create an environment for your child or children which enables them to learn and explore not just all about themselves, but also about the world around them in a very sort of relaxed and positive way. I'm hoping also that it will help you gain confidence in terms of creating that home learning environment, and also of course discover ways to help your child move towards independent play. And if you've got children particularly in these sort of early years, this is going to be really important for you as well as for them, and I'm going to be spending a little bit of time looking at that as well. And ultimately of course top tips so that you can go and put all these things into practice as soon as we've finished. So what I like to do is just by starting off with clarifying what I mean by a home learning environment, because I think it's worth just spending a minute or two looking at that, and also why it's so important. A home learning environment ultimately is everything that you do as a family, whether that's inside the home or outside the home, and it's anything that may affect what and how your child learns and develops. Family provides the context in which children begin to sort of understand the world around them, and it's really their first experience, if you think about it, of how a team works. A family is a team, and what it means to work together. And of course the home environment informs your child's learning, attitudes and beliefs as well. Now this environment, which is about giving opportunities for learning and experiences to play, it can involve many different ways. It might be on their own, it could be with siblings, with parents, or members of your extended family. It could include things like playing with books and toys or everyday objects, just things to help them sort of make sense of the world on a day-to-day basis. But it's not just about objects, it's about the interactions that your child also has, and about the encouragement and support that they're given to help them have a positive can-do attitude to life and to learning, and of course to help them understand cultural values and beliefs and develop confidence and belief in themselves. So that's what we mean in terms of what we're talking about as a home learning environment. Why is it so important? My goodness, there are so many pieces of research that have been done about this over quite a number of years. And there's one particular study, a longitudinal study, which covered from birth all the way through to 18 years of age. And you'll see some of the quotes up here on my screen now that really shows you why the home learning is so important. And you can see hear about research saying that, you know, the biggest influence on children's outcomes in terms of what they achieve, in terms of what they go on to do, in terms of their health and their well-being, is basically comes down to the home learning environment. So it really is crucial, and what you do at home really does make a difference. And I think it's just important to also say at this stage that some of you might think, oh, that feels just a little bit overwhelming. And I think at the moment in the current situation where we have COVID-19 and there might be restrictions with your child going to school, or you might be in lockdown or semi-lockdown, you can feel, you know I felt it myself at times, can feel a little bit overwhelming, that responsibility that you have for your child's home learning environment. But I'm confident that you're going to discover through this session that actually probably what you're doing already is really good, and also other ways to help you make the very, very best of that home learning environment. So what I'm going to do is, this is one of the first ways for me to interact with you and hear what you've got to say, is in a moment I'm going to be putting up a poll which is basically going to ask us, what I'm interested to hear from you at the moment is what you feel are currently your biggest challenges with your home learning environment right now. So obviously the first question that you answered before the webinar was just looking generally at how successful you feel your home learning environment is. But I'd really like to know now what your challenges are. What's your biggest challenges that you're facing? And there's a number of different options on this poll, and you can select as many or as little as you like. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that the poll will come up, and in a moment this will come up. And what I'd like you to do is to just vote for me. You can click as many as you like and tell me exactly what you feel are the biggest challenge. You've got lots here. We've got time. Time is always an issue in terms of how much time you can give your child. Have you got the space for them in terms of, you know, the home learning? Maybe you feel you just haven't got enough activity ideas. That's another one that often comes up. And also keeping to a routine or a schedule. We've got here lacking in confidence. Sometimes your confidence can come into that home learning environment as well. And maybe, you know, if your child's at school, perhaps you don't know what your child is learning at school, and therefore how you can support them as well. So there's lots of opportunities here. And thank you. I can see you're all coming in now and voting, which is absolutely fantastic. And it's interesting, I'm sure, for you to be able to see just that you're absolutely not on your own with this either, and that there are many other parents also, you know, struggling. So we've got, right, so there's quite a lot of you are talking about not enough activity ideas. That's definitely something we can help with. And similarly, running out of ideas. Also time, absolutely, that's also a big factor. And there's quite a few of you talking about sort of routine as well, and keeping to a routine and schedule. And I will be talking about that today. I'll be going into a lot more detail about that in another session, but I will be covering a bit about routine and schedule today as well. So I'm just going to give you a few more minutes, just a few more moments, just to select whichever ones you feel. If you've got any problems to vote, if you just put a note in the chat side. I can't see anything at the moment, so I think we're okay. But if anyone's got any problems, please just put a message, and either myself or the other host will be able to pick that up and hopefully help you be able to vote. So I'll just give that another minute, just in case it changes again. So what I'll be able to do is keep this in mind as I'm going through the session, and then hopefully I can try and help you with these challenges that you have at the moment. And obviously, if there are questions that you have, if you can save them until the end, and you've got particular questions that I've perhaps not been able to answer by the time we get to the Q&A, then that's a really good point at which to come on and ask me questions as well. So if you feel I haven't quite answered questions that you have in your mind, please don't hesitate to put a question up as well. Okay, so I think we're probably there now in terms of the polling. So that's fantastic. So we're really looking at activity ideas, keeping to a routine and schedule, and also about time. Time is, I know, a very big challenge, particularly, you know, if you have other siblings, and also if, you know, you're perhaps working, even if that's part-time working as well. So completely understand that. It's changed a little bit again, running out of activity ideas. Okay, fantastic. I can definitely help you with that today. Yeah, looking after children of different ages. Again, I'll be covering that as well. So it can be challenging, particularly if you've got children in early years, and then you've perhaps got children at school. So obviously here we're supporting you if you've got children between the ages of 0 and 8, and that is a big span in terms of being able to be in lots of different places all at the same time, and feel that you're giving every child that you have the best possible home learning environment. So we'll be looking at that as well today. Okay, super. So I think we'll probably end the poll there, because we've got quite a lot to get through. So thank you so much for completing that. Yeah, we can see far and away outstrip is the activity ideas. Okay, so that's lovely. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing that now. There we go. Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to close that down now. Lovely. So thank you so much for that. So what I'd like to do is reshare my screen again. We've got a lot of stop and starting on the screen share at the moment, so please just bear with me. Okay, so there we go. And that's full. Okay, so what we're going to do is look at what does a positive and enjoyable home learning environment look like? And basically, there are 3 elements to your home learning environment. You might wonder why school is in there, but I'm going to explain that as we go along. So the first one is play, and this is all about variety of activities and experiences and opportunities for play. And as we've already seen on the poll, that is one of the biggest challenges that certainly quite a lot of you have in terms of sort of running out of ideas and having enough variety of ideas. It might be play with friends, with siblings, it might be independent play as well, and play also includes looking at routine and structure. Secondly, we've got interactions, which I've mentioned at the beginning. This is about the level of engagement that you have, or that there is, between family members to support, encourage and help your child learn in the home. And thirdly, school, and this is really important element as well. So I'm going to explain about that, but this is about supporting and extending the learning that your child does at school, and about communication to and from school. But as I say, I'll come to that in a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand on each one, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then I'm going to bring in an interactive whiteboard for you to contribute to. So here we go, let's hope that that works. So in terms of learning through play, what does learning through play actually look like in the home? The first thing I want to say is there's often a feeling when we're looking at children's learning that it should be approached in a very academic way. But throughout childhood, play is the most crucial thing to focus on. And as you'll see from my next slide, the kinds of skills that children are developing and skills and characteristics that they are developing through play are absolutely amazing. And you can see here, we've got resilience, resourcefulness, communication, problem solving, teamwork, self-expression, gross and fine motor skills, self-reliance, decision-making, the list goes on. So don't for 1 minute think that just because your child is playing, they're not learning. They most definitely are. And of course, toys are lots of fun, and toys are the tools which can help your child learn about themselves and about the world around them. Now then, in terms of what play is, I could have gone and written probably about 3 pages on this. It literally is anything and everything from singing songs and nursery rhymes to painting, drawing, role play, dressing up, learning to ride a bike, going on a bus ride, helping out in the kitchen, helping sort laundry, doing puzzles. My goodness, the list really is endless. And the key with this in your home learning environment is to make sure that you're providing lots of different activities and experiences for your child to enjoy and try out. But children's play doesn't have to be structured. In fact, it's better if at least part of the time during the day they have what we call free play. So this is where children are free to explore and experiment without adult intervention. And children need to become engrossed in their play without interruptions. So standing back from that and taking a bit of time out yourself is just as important as playing alongside them. So it can take time for children to learn through play independently, and I am going to cover that, as I say, in a little bit. But I want to run through some top tips for learning through play at home. The first thing that I would ask you to do is to look at the space that your child has in where they play. Now, you might have a dedicated playroom at home, but that doesn't mean to say that there aren't opportunities for your child to learn to play and explore outside of that. But having dedicated spaces or areas for things like dressing up or role play is a really good idea. And so resources such as play boxes can really help encourage them to make up stories, for example. And I've got a great example of a phonics basket. Now, supposing your child is learning new letter sounds. So supposing they're learning the letter F for feathers, and they're learning that at school. You can support them at home by putting together a little basket of items which begin with the letter F. So you might have feathers, you might have a fork, you might have a fan, and I'm sure you can think of lots of other ideas. So having a little basket around in their play area which support those letter sounds, that's just one really simple idea. Learning isn't just within the house, of course, it's also outside as well. And I know there are sort of dedicated play spaces for outdoor play. You might want to read together, as I said before, some tabletop space where they're doing painting and drawing, lots and lots of things. So just think about the space that they have to play. Now, you'll probably already know how important reading is from an early age, and reading with your child. And a lovely idea is to create just a small reading area, a little reading corner in a room. Now, you might want to just do that really simply by bunching cushions or blankets together. And it makes a really sort of comfy space in which your child could read on their own if they're able, or you can use that space to read with them. So it just makes a change in terms of sort of tabletop learning. So do have a look at your child's space. Next, it would be great to look at the opportunities for learning in the everyday. So for example, if you're in the kitchen and you're preparing some food and you need to use, let's say you're going to cook some rice in a pan, you might want to turn to your child and say, do you think we need a big pan or a small pan for that? And just see what they say, and if they, you feel they haven't given the right answer, that's interesting. Why do you feel we need a small pan for rice? And it opens up all sorts of conversations that helps them learn. You might want to look at colours or counting. Food is great. If you've got apples, red apples, green apples, or how many apples do we have in the fruit bowl? How many bananas do we have in the fruit bowl? What happens when something goes wrong at home? Do you speak out loud in terms of how you're going to problem solve that? How can I fix this? Oh, now that's broken. What am I going to do? And you can talk out loud so your child is listening all the time to what you're saying and learning. And there's lovely activities too, simple activities there in early years, like matching socks. So you could match the socks, you could match colours, they could help you sort washing into light colours or into dark colours. So lots and lots of opportunities in the everyday for your child to learn through play. And I've just rattled off, at least half a dozen activity ideas there. So, hopefully, that's already giving you some ideas. I should just say as well, which I didn't at the beginning, is I do have a handout. It's about sort of 5 pages long, and most of what I'm covering here in terms of the ideas are covered on that handout as well. Now, in terms of your child going out and about, I've already mentioned this, but you've got a picture there of someone in the supermarket. They're great ideas, but even just going on a walk or going to the park, take the opportunity to point out signs or words or colours or numbers, and you could make it into a game. So for example, you could say the next person to see a red car can walk 2 paces forward, something like that, for example. Lots of ways of bringing learning into the everyday. Where would we find pasta in the supermarket? Get them thinking about, how the world works around them, and do keep them motivated as well. Acknowledge their effort, say, well done, I can see you work really hard on working that out. So lots of motivation, acknowledging how they're doing. Now, one of the things that has clearly come up through the poll at the beginning was about variety and also routine. So I've mentioned lots of sort of play ideas for your child, and running alongside this is about a balance between sedentary, so sort of sitting down activities, and moving around. If you think of your child when they're at school, they're not going to be sat at a table the whole time, and children naturally like to move around. I know my son does. So keeping them physically active while learning is really helpful. Now, in times of the pandemic, of course, you might find yourself in self-isolation, or perhaps you have a small house, or perhaps your children, can't go outside. So it can be a little more challenging. But I am running another webinar in a few weeks' time called Active Words and Numbers. And there's lots of activities there children can do to keep them active whilst they're learning. And of course, doing that is going to support them with a healthy body and a healthy mind. And daily physical activity and building that into your routine is going to be really good for their mental well-being as well. And also, I would just say, it's good for us as adults too, and parents. So have a think about, is there something that you could be doing on a daily basis as a family to support that in terms of actively moving around and active play? Now, with regards to routine, it is good for you and your child to try and establish a routine as early as possible. this doesn't mean a rigid structure that can't be moved at sort of any cost, but it's about helping your child understand what they're doing and when over a period of time. So things like a visual timetable where you have pictures of what's going to happen as well as words can be very useful if you've got children in early years. And I've got some examples on the handout at the end of this session that you'll have there that I've included on visual timetables. And you can get your child involved in putting together that visual timetable, and it creates much more ownership for them as well. Now you might well have, and I can see that's quite a few of you have got children of different ages, so it may well be that you have children perhaps 7, 8 or even older, and I know that, you know, it's really important for them to have space for their learning, and particularly if they've got sort of homework. So even things like putting their homework diary or timetable on display so that everyone could see what they should be doing on what day, and they may also still find a visual timetable very helpful. Something to mention here is a lot of parents worry about, you know, a lot of noise if their child's trying to learn something and do some schoolwork, about the noise, and they want to keep it as quiet as possible. You know, I wouldn't worry about that too much unless your child actively complains about it, because children are used to being in busy classrooms. They're definitely not quiet places. And they actually may find silence quite difficult to cope with. So the penultimate one on here is about encouraging your child moving towards free or independent play. Now, it's going to be almost impossible for you to keep your child occupied the whole of the time. And it's important to remember that for them, doing nothing and just being able to find their own way of playing, that free, that independent play, is really important for them. You know, it's an opportunity for them to use their imagination, to see where their imagination takes them. And it's a chance for you as well to learn more about them. So standing back, letting them play on their own. Don't worry about doing that. I'm going to cover, as I say, a little bit more about that in a minute. So the other thing to mention also, if you have children of school age as well, if they are working to a school schedule, if perhaps schools aren't open, try and bear in mind with snack time that to be sort of smart with snack time. So obviously scheduling breaks are really important so that children have breaks in between their learning, and also being smart with snacks. So basically having snacks which are brain boosting, something nutritional, really, really good idea, rather than just sort of relying on sweet treats. So sort of brain boosting snacks, really, really good idea. Things like nuts and seeds and bananas and fruit and things like that are a really great idea to boost your child's brain development. Finally, now some of you may know what this means and others not, and that's absolutely fine. I want to just mention about supporting schematic play. Now, if you've got younger children, this is something I'm sure you will have noticed already, which is that children like to repeat. They like to repeat actions and things that they're learning. And this is a normal part of development, and it helps them explore the world. It helps them work out how things work. And repetition is a really strong drive in children, and it's often referred to as schematic play. And it might include things like moving things from one place to another and then back again. It might include covering things up and then opening them up again, covering it up and opening it up again, putting objects into pots or containers and taking them out again, just as you can see there on that picture. Or it might even include throwing things, and I'm sure we've all experienced this, including the things that perhaps they shouldn't, but throwing things, that is also actually part of schematic play where they keep doing it. It's all about learning. When children are really absorbed in their play, you can see this repetition happening. And that's a really good point for you to stand back and stand away. If you want to, you can comment positively on what's happening. So, for example, you could encourage your child with the words, "That's right, the square brick goes through the square hole." So you're just reinforcing what they're learning. And children do need to feel supported in a way that gives them the confidence to explore their thoughts and ideas. And they learn through repetition. So I just want to recap quickly on the top tips for learning through play. So looking at child space to play, using what's around you in terms of the everyday for learning opportunities, whether in the home or out and about, supporting that repetitive, that schematic play, bite-sized chunks of learning, so following your child's lead, making sure they have regular breaks, varying your child's experiences and their opportunities to play, establishing some kind of routine and structure, and as I said before, trying out visual timetables, and then moving towards, particularly for younger children, starting to move towards free or independent play. And it's remembering it's not always up to you to provide the entertainment and provide the play activities. And that's a really important message for those of you who feel that you're running out of activities and ideas. So please remember, it's not always up to you to provide that entertainment. So I know I've gone through that at quite a big pace, but hopefully that resonates with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, because I'm going to introduce a new facility, which is an interactive whiteboard. And this is what I'd like to do. I'd like you to start thinking now, before I bring the whiteboard up, in the context of what I've just talked about now, learning through play, so the first element of your home learning environment, I'd like you to just take a moment to reflect and think about how you feel that is working for you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up, there we go, so hopefully you can see this screen now on here, and this is the question that I'm going to ask you. I'm just going to make absolutely sure that just one moment, I want to make sure that that is up. I'm not sure it is. There, okay. Excellent. Okay, perfect. So now you should be able to see this screen. Okay, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that you can annotate. So if you are on a computer, a sort of desktop computer, there will be something called view options, and under options you will see an option for annotation. And what you can do under there, and if you haven't got that and you're on sort of a tablet or a PC, you should be able to come up with a little menu, and it says annotate, and in annotate there is an option called stamp. And what I'd like you to do is to use that, so you can select, there should be an option for a tick or a star or a heart, anything like that. So if you use that stamp option to put where you feel you are at the moment on this scale of learning through play in your home learning environment. And I've put some words to prompt, because obviously I'm pretty sure I've covered, you know, quite a lot of stuff in this section. So where are you with regards to sort of looking at your child's space and the space that they have to play, things like creating reading corners? How do you use everyday opportunities as learning opportunities? Are you stepping back when they're doing schematic or repetitive play? Are you looking at sort of free and independent play? So I can see someone's put a 6 there. So I'd like you to go from, just to say as well, this is anonymous, so your names won't be coming up. So no one's going to see, you know, if you feel that you're really, really struggling and you're on a 1 or a 2, no one's going to see your name associated with that at all. So I'd like you to just take a moment and just reflect where you feel you are on this scale. So I'm going to stop talking just for a minute and let you have a little think about that. And if you can annotate that would be marvellous. Yeah, so we've got a few coming in now, which is great. Fantastic. Great, so we've got some sort of going towards it, which is great. And part of what I was hoping to achieve today was for those of you who feel that, you know, you're fairly successful in terms of the home learning environment, is that this is sort of reinforcing that you know that what you're doing, you're on the right track. And I think that's great. But even so, I hope there's always sort of room to improve. Thank you for using a little heart. That's always lovely to see as well. So you can use whichever stamp you use. I appreciate for some of you, if you're on a tablet or a mobile, it may be a little harder to do, but if we can get as many of you as possible to use this, that would be marvellous. We've got some different colours there as well. Okay, fantastic. So we've got a little range here, haven't we? Okay, so as I say, think about, you know, do you feel comfortable with how much your child is able to play independently at the moment? Is that something you'd kind of like to work on? So, you know, if you're at a 4 at the moment, so we've got quite a few at 4, which is good, which is fantastic. How are we going to move forward? What have you learned already from this session that you can start putting into practice to help you move towards a 5? If you're on a 5, then we're going to be looking at moving towards a 6. If you're on a 2, that's great. We can start looking towards a 3 and what you can put into practice. So I'm just going to give you a few more seconds. Yeah, okay, that's great. So we've got a few more coming in. As I say, if you have any problems at all, please just put a note in the chat, and hopefully my co-hosts will be able to pick that up. I can't actually see the chat at the moment because of my screen share system, but if you are having any problems, please just put a note in and someone will be able to help you with it. But this seems to be working fine, which is lovely. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be talking next about interactions, and it won't be such a long session on interactions, and then a little bit about school. We're going to be using the same system again to really get a feel for how things are working. So I'm going to save this, okay, so it's not lost. Thank you very, very much for doing that. And as I say, when we come to the end on the Q&A as well, we'll be able to hopefully open up those questions and open up the conversation as well. So that is fantastic. So I'm going to stop the share. There we go. Right, so what I'd like to do now is to move on and talk just a little bit about interactions. So interactions in the home learning environment are really important in terms of looking at how you engage with your child and support and encourage them to learn. So I'm going to start by showing you a very short video from PACEY, and PACEY are the Professional Association for Childcare in Early Years. So I'm just going to start by showing you that video now. Okay, so that was just a short video, but really sort of reinforcing that even just the tiniest little things really can make a big difference. So I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, here we go. Right, so, one moment. Okay, so in terms of interactions, what the research has shown is that there are particular types of interactions with your children that can produce a stronger sort of brain response in terms of your child's development, and those are what we call back and forth conversations. So noticing when your child is playing and you commenting on that can open up really interesting conversations for both of you. And as I say, these back and forth exchanges are what we're trying to aim for. So rather than just talking to children, we have these back and forth conversations, which is really great for their brain development. Now then, we've got a few top tips here in terms of learning through interactions. And as I've said already, the back and forth conversations are really important. They help your child learn simple things like taking turns, for example. But just to say, particularly in early years, children may not always respond verbally to you. So let's take a scenario, for example. Supposing your child is stacking blocks on top of each other and building a tower. You could respond with, wow, you're building a tower. So you're just sort of noticing what they're doing and reinforcing that to your child. Don't be tempted to fill in the space if they don't respond back to you, but wait quietly after you've said that. If they then continue to add more blocks to the tower, or, which is what often happens, is they start to build another tower, then that's, or you've already started that back and forth conversation. It's not always about building on what they've actually verbally said, but it can be about what they're actually doing. So that's really important to remember that for early years. Now, I also want to mention about using questions. The danger we tend to get in, and this often happens when we're picking our children up from school or when they come in the house from school, is, how was school today? Did you do this? Did you do that? And children can very, very easily become very overwhelmed by us asking lots of questions. I've done it myself with my own son, because you just want to know and you're interested and you like to know and you see that as a way of supporting your child, and it can be, but the danger with questions is it can stop that back and forth process. So let's take, for example, your child has done a drawing for you. You could say and ask them lots of questions about, say, what's that? Oh, why did you put that there? What's that? But a different way of starting a conversation is by saying, that's a really interesting picture you've drawn for me. Thank you. I'd love to know more about it. And immediately you're opening up the conversation for your child to start talking about it. And it enables your child to communicate. It shows you that you are engaged with them through non-verbal actions. So as they're talking, use your non-verbal actions, things like nodding, smiling, and so on. So these two ones here about using questions carefully and engaging through non-verbal sort of go together, really. So just think about, rather than sort of 20 questions, coming up with a phrase which opens up the conversations for your child, and it'll naturally go from there. I want to mention about mirroring. Some of you may be aware of this. This is another type of interaction to help your child develop a greater sense of self-awareness and self-control by you reflecting how they feel, either through words or through facial expressions. And without this, it can be quite difficult for your child to relate to and understand their emotions. So let's give an example of this. On a very simple level, matching their excitement with an excited tone of voice yourself. So you could verbally comment by saying, I can see you're so excited about going out to play. Okay, so you can see how I've lifted my face there and lifted my tone as well. Now, another example, which is slightly more negative, but will help you reflect your child who isn't happy, could be, let's say you're out at the park and it's time to go and your child doesn't want to leave. They're going to struggle, they're going to put their foot down, and they're going to have a tantrum. Now, what you can do is mirror what they are expressing. So I don't mean having a tantrum yourself, although sometimes it does feel tempting. I do understand that as a parent. But let's say, for example, you could say, I can see you're upset that we have to leave the park now. It's been such fun and you want to stay. I understand that. So it's just showing empathy and showing that you understand that frustration, because that tantrum is simply because they're not able to express perhaps verbally what they want to do. Or sometimes they can. They say, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave the park. But your empathy and your response is mirroring that. And you could say, you could extend that by saying, let's talk about when we can come again, because I know you enjoy it so much. So it's getting them to move on from the present and think about the fact there is going to be another opportunity for them to go to the park. So it can be a really useful technique to either calm things down or simply just to acknowledge how your child is feeling. And finally, paraphrasing. Now, this is a great technique to let your child know that they have been listened to and that you understand what they're saying. It's basically repeating what they've said, but in your own words. So, for example, let's say, so I think what you're saying is you don't want to have a bath after tea because you want to play outside. Is that right? Now, by asking that question at the end, is that right? It gives your child the opportunity to either confirm what you've said is correct or not, so that they feel fully understood. And those interactions with your child in terms of actively listening, back and forth conversations, support and encouragement will help your child, not just in terms of encouraging their language and their thinking, but also in them feeling valued as well. And so just to recap my top tips for interactions, using the range of interactive styles. If you've not tried mirroring and paraphrasing before, they can be really, really useful techniques, and it's really positive in helping your child learn. Actively listen in the here and now, share enthusiasm, show your engagement through non-verbal actions, be cautious with asking questions, using open phrases to encourage your child to have a conversation. And the other thing which I do want to mention here is family meal times. Meal times are such a great opportunity for everyone to get around the table, put the tech away, put the mobile phones away and get talking. So it's such a brilliant idea. So I'm just going to stop sharing again and open up a new share, and this time we will have not this one, but we will have interaction. So again, what you should find here is, let me just make sure that we're there, is learning through interactions, working in your home. So I'd like you to do the same thing again and look at how you feel interactions based on what I've been talking about just now, back and forth conversations, family time, mirroring, paraphrasing, all those things. How do you feel? So I'd like you to assess your own home learning environment now on how you feel that is working in your home at the moment. So if you use the annotation option, which should be there, I hope, then let me just make absolutely sure that we have disabled. Yep, so you can go ahead and use your stamp again, and this time put on where you feel you are on this scale. So I'll just let you take a minute to assess where you feel you are. So there's the stamp. And there we go. Lovely. So someone's got a 5 on there, which is smashing. That's lovely. So hopefully, you know, even if you feel you're okay, you've got a 5, you've got a couple of steps we can help you, hopefully, through this session, move towards as well. 4, lovely. Thank you. Yeah, we've got a few 4s, so good. That's great. So hopefully what's happening is I'm reinforcing things that you're doing, but also giving you ideas for thinking, oh, I could try that next time. I could try mirroring, paraphrasing. I could try opening up conversations. So we can have a few more if any of you are able to use this as well. That would be great. So I'll just give you a few more minutes, a few more moments. Lovely. Okay. Smashing. And if while we're waiting for other people to put their stamp on and assess where they are with this, start thinking about what you've heard me talk about here with regards to interactions and what you could put in place to help you start moving forwards on the scale. So what is it that will help you move towards from a 4 to a 5? Or from a 5 to a 6 or a 3 to a 4. So start thinking about making some notes, maybe if you're able to, and thinking about what's going to help you actually move along. Any more coming on? As I say, it is confidential. There's no, I can't see your names either. No one else can see your names. So please don't worry about that at all. Okay, and if you don't want to assess, that's absolutely fine as well. No problem at all. So I am going to move on because I'm conscious of time. I've got one small section to finish on, a little bit about independent play, and then we may run over just by a few minutes just to allow some questions and answers, because I do want to give you the opportunity for that as well. So I'm going to save that now and say thank you very much again for doing that. So now we're going to come back to, this seems to be working well at the moment. Okay, so now what we are going to do is move towards school. So you may wonder why, when we're talking about a home learning environment, why I am bringing school into here. And the reason for this is because communication with your child's school, whether that's kindergarten or primary, or even when they're going to start, if they haven't at the moment, is really important to help you understand what your child is learning there and how you can support and extend that learning in the home. Now, this goes beyond the normal sort of scheduled meetings that you might have with your child's teacher, and it looks at getting involved in your child's education, and schools are really, really keen to engage parents better. And in fact, I'm doing some work in the UAE precisely in this area in a couple of months' time. So how involved are you in your child's school? Well, I've got a few questions for you here to start thinking about. How involved are you generally in terms of your child's education? Do you know what they're doing? Do you know how they progress in school? Are schools supporting you? So are they giving you learning resources or activities so that you can help your child in the home learning environment? So, you know, I talked about a phonics basket, which is a great idea. If your child is learning a particular letter sound, that's a really good idea to introduce at home if your child is learning particular letters. And you can support their learning at home in that way. And the other way is, how do you communicate with school? So if you have something that happens in terms of a learning achievement in your home learning environment, how are you communicating that back at school? So what I'd like to do, so this is just a short section here, is I'd like you to think about that now while I change screens again. And I'm going to bring up the screen share, the last one now, on the whiteboard for school. I'm just going to go back on that one. There we go. Let me just make sure that is there, so hopefully you can see this one, to make the annotations are there. So what I'd like you to do finally is just mark up on here again, so you should be used to this by now, hopefully, using your stamp. Where do you feel you are in terms of how well learning through school is working in terms of the home environment? So how involved are you in your child's education? How do you feel communication is working both to school and from school? And how well do you think you're able to support and extend your child's learning at school but at home? So if you could just use the stamp again and pop that on and just assess where you are with that. So that's the third element of the home learning environment. So I'll just wait for a few stamps to come on. Okay, so we've got a couple here already that are saying good. So that's excellent. There's always room for improvement on these things. Anyway, that's all about us learning as parents, and the schools learning as well. As I said before, schools are really, really keen to engage parents better. That's nice to see a gold star on there at number 5. That's excellent. Very appropriate use of a stamp there as well. I'm going to put one on myself actually in terms of my my own son's school, and I'll probably go along with a, yeah, probably around about 5 actually. I think there's sort of lots of things that, you know, we could be doing a little bit better, so I need to take a leaf out of my own book on that as well. So okay, does anyone else want to put any more? As I say, you don't have to use the stamp, but it's nice to have a visual way and a way of you participating in the session. But you don't have to, just think in your own head how you feel that is working for you. So we've got a few stamps there. Okay, lovely. Okay, smashing. So, okay, we've got, yeah, sort of middle ground really. So there's a few things there that can definitely be worked on. So I'm going to save that now because I am conscious of time. Now, I said I was going to talk a little bit about independent play, and I've just got a few minutes just to finish off with that really. And we haven't really got a huge amount of time, so I'm just going to show this one. Okay, I've just got some top tips in terms of helping your child move towards independent play. And the first thing I want to say about it is about starting slowly. There are lots of ways you can do this. If you just simply walk out of the room, there's a very good chance that your child's going to cry. And I know when my child was certainly in early years, basically every time I walked out of the room, he would start yelling and shouting at me. So that wasn't the way to do it. And we do need to start slowly with it. So it might be that you stay in the room with your child, but you just sit a little bit further away from them. It could be then the next stage is you stay in the room, you're a little bit further away from them, but this time perhaps you start reading a book or doing something else yourself, but still in the same room. So don't try and go from sort of 1 to 100 it all in one go. So start slowly. Open-ended toys and activities are very, very helpful for this as well. And this, as I said at the beginning, you know, is not down to you as a parent to keep being the entertainment and providing the entertainment. If you work with the right kind of toys and activities, so the kind of things I'm talking about here are things like blocks, building blocks, toy cars, toy people, things that encourage imaginative play. And they're really, really helpful to encourage your child's creative thinking, imagination, and encouraging repetition. You know, I talked about schematic play and encouraging repetition, and limiting screen time as well. Screen time tends to be a very passive way of learning. It's also very content driven. So it's not encouraging your child to create their own play. Be realistic about how long they can play on their own, particularly when you're first starting to introduce it. Let's say for a 2.5-year-old, they may be okay with 10 or 15 minutes of independent play, and it may be no longer than that. It might be longer, but just follow your child's lead on that. And when they do play independently of you, acknowledge it and praise their progress by saying things like, I really like the way you've just played on your own there. Well done. Give your child the opportunity to make decisions. This might sound a bit odd, but sorry, pressing the wrong button there. But actually, part of being independent is about making decisions for themselves. So giving your child opportunities to make decisions is going to help with their independence. And really, really simply, this could be things like, would you like squash or water to drink? Would you like butter on your toast or jam on your toast? So you can start really, really simply, but anything like that which enables your child to start to make decisions for themselves will help them with independence and independent play. You might want to look at identifying one task a week to focus on that you think your child may be able to do independently once they've had a little bit of support and training. And the main thing to remember is to be patient. Practice doesn't make perfect. What practice does is it makes progress. And that's a really, really important thing to remember. And when you're encouraging independent play, look at their routine and where they play and say to yourself, what changes can I make which will allow my child to complete that task without my help? It's a really good question to always have in the back of your mind. So those are my top tips for moving towards independent play. Now, very, very quickly, and I'm going to rush through this quite quickly because I know we're at 3 o'clock, so we're just going to quickly end here in a minute with the quiz time. So I just want as a way of recapping and also for you to recap in your own mind. And when we've done that, we're going to go into the questions and answers. So very quickly, question number 1, repetition is an example of what? Schematic play, physical play, or parallel play. So you can just shout it out loud or just make a note in your mind about it. Okay, and the answer to that is schematic play. Okay. Question number 2, complete the blank space in the following sentence. Play, what, and school are key elements of a home learning environment. So what's the blank space? And that's interactions. Question number 3, and I've just said it. So practice makes what? Practice makes learning perfect or progress. Practice makes progress. Okay. Question number 4, what kind of conversations have been shown to be beneficial to a child's brain development? One-way conversations, back and forth conversations, or quiet conversations? The answer to that is back and forth conversations. Question number 5, what kinds of toys and activities are helpful to encourage independent play? Open-ended, noisy, or screen-based? The answer to that, of course, is open-ended. And finally, question 6, what technique can you use to show your child that you have listened to and understand what they have said? Questioning, mirroring, or paraphrasing? So let's think about that for a second. Slightly trickier question. Okay, and the answer is paraphrasing. I'm just going to run through the, there we go. So I hope the session has got you thinking about your child's home learning environment, and it would be great if you could have a go at completing your own action plan. So you remember this, the score that you've been, the grading system that we've been using, where you've been assessing yourselves on play and interactions and schools. What I'd like you to do is go back to that now and think about where you put your stamp on and how you can start working towards moving forwards on each of those in play and interactions and schools. Now, I want you to be realistic with setting the goal and thinking about who can support you in achieving that and moving forward, and remembering that small steps equals steady progress. So, shukran. Thank you very much for joining in today. Now, we have gone over a little bit, but I'm going to allow just a few more minutes so that if there are any questions you have at all, I will see if I can answer them now. Now, if we completely run out of time, and my co-hosts will give me a little nod about this, I will stay on and still answer your questions, and I will write a response and they will go up on the website. So no questions will go unanswered. So if you have got a question, please please use the chat facility. You can unmute your microphone, and basically you can ask me the question and I will answer it, hopefully, or you can use the raise hand option. So I'm going to stop screen sharing now. Hopefully, there we go. Okay, there we go, and I am back here. And have we got any questions? Let's just have a look if we've got any questions. Thank you, you're very welcome. So please use the chat facility to put any messages on as well. So I'm just going to see if there are any questions coming in. I know I have covered an awful lot for you here today. The handout that you'll have at the end of this session covers everything in there. So it covers all the 3 sections, all the top tips, including independent play and things like visual timetables as well. So, you know, it's all in there as well. I'll just see if there's any more questions. I have got one question here, which is, how can I motivate my child to get their school homework done? So that's a good question. So I'm guessing this is probably from someone who is got a child who's a little bit older, perhaps 6, 7, 8 years of age. Lots of ways to do this. The first thing I would do, if they're really struggling to get their work done and they're not settling to get their homework done, the first thing to do is just look at the space that they've got to actually get their work done. So look at things like, is their space comfortable? Is their chair comfortable? Have they got too many distractions? Are they hungry? Give them a, you know, a healthy snack if they are. Have they got all their sort of learning kit around them? And once you've sort of ruled all that out, then, you know, if it's simply a question of them, they can do it, but they just don't want to, then it may be time to introduce things like some sort of reward charts, and they can be really, really handy for helping and sort of motivating children to get their schoolwork done. So you can use simple things like stickers, sticker reward charts, or you can do treats, and it might be things like, well, a treat could be, you know, phoning a friend, or it might be a trip out or something like that, where, you know, at the end of the week they've earned X number of stars on their reward chart for, you know, getting on and doing their homework, and you make sure that you fulfill that treat that you've agreed with them. It could be that your child is genuinely struggling with the learning, and that's a different matter altogether. Now, you know, I know a lot of parents worry that they haven't got the knowledge to sort of help their child complete their homework, but, you know, just showing an interest in it is going to be as important as anything else. And this is where the communication with your school becomes really, really important in terms of understanding what it is that they're trying to teach your child and how you can support them as well. So if you haven't got all the answers, that's absolutely fine. But what you might want to do is go back to where you are on that scale and say, what do I need to do to improve communications between what's happening at home in home learning and what is actually happening at school? So that's my sort of answer for that particular question. So I haven't got any more questions at the moment, so hopefully I haven't given you complete overwhelm in the last hour. So really that's all we have time for today. I want to say shukran again. Thank you very much for participating and using the whiteboard and having a go at the quiz and doing the poll as well. I just want to mention next Sunday at the same time, so the 27th of September, I'm going to be running another webinar just for parents called Planning Your Child's Day to include learning, moving, mindfulness and joy. And it's going to be packed with lots of practical activity ideas. So if you're interested in that, please do register for it and join me then at the same time on Sunday, the 27th of October. So I really hope to see you again. Shukran, ma salam.